Hey everyone, it's Anthony Ramos. Okay, so the film The Obituary of Tunde Johnson is a powerful story about a gay Black teenager who is trapped in a time loop who has to relive the day of his fatal, racially motivated shooting by police officers over and over again. Stephen Silver plays Tunde, and Spencer Neville stars as Soren, who is the closeted classmate that Tunde is in love with. The film is so amazing, so powerful, and it's in theaters and video on demand on February 26th. And right now, I'm joined by Stephen and Spencer. How are you both?
Wonderful. How you doing?
Good. Okay, Stephen, if I can
Happy to
start
be
with
here.
hi. Hey. This film is so impactful, and thinking about that, this film was created before George Floyd, before so many of these moments in our history happened. What was your reaction the first time that you read this story? Because it really is one that just stayed with me for days and days and days after I saw the film.
Yeah, we filmed this years ago, and I still am discovering things. I still am like, oh, that popped something open in my head. Now I understand. And I thought that was the beauty of the film. Like immediately after reading, it gave me the feeling that I think a lot of us feel when we think about society and its response to the marginalization of the LGBTQ community and racism, which is that there's an understanding that there's something clearly wrong and clearly not working, but we don't necessarily. It's hard to articulate the totality of what you feel in regards to those things. And this movie, I felt like provided a visual, cinematic, like tool to show how the structure works. You know what I mean? Because the lives that Black people and LGBTQ people live are almost supernatural in nature. Like the things that they have to overcome just to exist. I think a cinematic universe is one that can do it justice, because you can exist out of the realm of reality, because the things that those people go through are unreal.
All right, so Spencer, you play Soren, really the perfect guy, the popular kid, the jock. He's got, everything, yet he's got, the secret, and he's closeted and he's gay and he's, exploring this relationship with Tunde. What was your reaction to, this story, the first time that you read it?
I mean, I was immediately drawn to the character and the story and that part of the story. I mean, obviously the other aspects that Stephen just touched on were, I mean, you talked about George Floyd and the events of just this past year, but it was just as timely when I read the script then, because this is not some new thing, right? It's been happening forever. But my response to Soren's side of the story was, I see and understand exactly, even though I haven't experienced these things, the societal pressures of this one I have experienced: toxic masculinity, right? Not being able to show your emotions. And that's part of what his relationship is with his father, and the lack of acceptance that he thinks wrongly, as we see with the scene with Tunde. But he doesn't feel like he can be who he really is with his father. And the same, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing with his classmates too. He has this appearance to maintain because he is the star athlete. And that experience I was really able to connect with, because I grew up in the South. I played sports, and even though I had these cravings is not the right word, but cravings to do more artistic things, it was kind of like, you should probably just go to football practice every day and do all those things. And so I was really able to connect with that aspect of the societal pressures that are placed on young men.
Okay, I was gonna say I wanted to also add that I read the script first, and then I found out that Stanley wrote it when he was 19.
Right.
And so that kind of was mind blowing. I mean, shout out to Stanley. I wish I had been that smart when I was 19. But finding out that he wrote this at 19 was mind blowing, and it also was heartbreaking because it's like, it's unfortunate that at 19 he understands this stuff to the gravity that he does. But that was another motivating factor.
For sure.
For sure.
Stephen, I don't want to spoil too much, but what was it like for you? Because there is so many similarities, especially one scene in particular. When you mentioned that you filmed this a couple years ago, and then flash forward to 2020 in June, when we see what happened to George Floyd, very specifically with the "I can't breathe" moment. What was it like for you to know that you had this film that you had created, and then to see something like this happen in the news that was, so similar?
Overwhelming, daunting. But I had to really draw from, that's why it's important that's why history is important, because I really had to draw from the strength of, civil rights leaders from the past. And I had to really have a conversation with myself that if they were able to handle it, then I definitely can handle this as well. But yeah, it was heart wrenching. Yeah, it's very hard to do a project that you're not separate from. My 2020 started with me working in Georgia, living in a predominantly non-Black neighborhood, and my car getting repeatedly spat on because they knew that was my car. That's how my 2020 started. Then we had everything that happened, and then my 2020 ended with me on Christmas Day running into CVS, and the manager of CVS berating me in front of everyone because she thought that I wanted to steal something. I had and then when she found out, she didn't even apologize. It was just like, oh, sorry, she didn't say sorry, but she just was like, oh, it looked strange. But anyway, so yeah, it was pretty daunting. But I was very proud to see the way that the world, it was daunting, but it also was inspiring because the way that the world came together, people from all kinds of groups, showed up and basically, told the big scary monster to step back, So yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm so sorry that happened to you, and I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. I'm running out of time, but Spencer, I guess my last question for you could be, what is it you hope that people that see this film, the Obituary of Tunde Johnson, what do you want people to take away from this story?
Well, I had some family come to TIFF and see the movie, and seeing the way that it impacted them, and like there's a lot of the population that kind of lives with blinders on, that doesn't even really know that this happens to marginalized groups of people. Like they live in their bubble, and I hope that this movie will just shed light on the experiences of people that are maybe outside of your bubble.
No, completely, I understand, yeah. And I appreciate.
So yeah, and to just be more aware and to have a little bit more empathy for people that aren't the same as you necessarily, right?
Absolutely. Okay, and now I'm very excited to talk to the film's director, Ali LeRoi, and the film's writer, Stanley Kalu. Um, First off, this film it's one that really stays with you, and I thank you so much for making it. It's such an important film. What was it like for you to, well, I guess, Ali, let me start with you. What was well, actually, no, Stanley, I want to start with you because you wrote this film. What was and I guess you wrote this when you were, when you were 19, is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about why this was an important story that you wanted to tell, because like I said, it's such an important one.
Yeah. So it really came down to living life as a majority for most of, for 18 years of my life, I was, I lived all of Africa, right? So I had not experienced systemic racism until I got here. That simply did not exist. So when I did get to America, I was really struck by the nature of cyclical violence against Black bodies. And it was really that simple. Like, when you see people that look like you die every day on screen, on the news, I understood very early that, oh, this is a time loop, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a very real, concrete, very visceral sense. So that's why the story was important to me. It was trying to express and understand the nature of violence against anyone that's an other, any minority group within America, and just try to parse through it and understand and express what that is. Yeah.
Ali, I was speaking to Stephen about, this film was made a couple years ago, and it's coming out now in 2021. What was it like for you to know that you had this film created, and then to see what happened to George Floyd in June of 2020, with obviously so many similarities of the story that you're telling here? What was it like to kind of see that happen, knowing that you had this story to tell?
I don't know, unfortunate,
Yeah.
you know. I'd rather it not have, increased importance because we had to watch, more Black people die, on a public stage, in such horrific ways. Yeah, that you almost wish that by the time the movie comes out, it's like, yeah, this is important when y'all made it, but now not so much. Right? It's the opposite. It's like, oh, this is even, it's more spot on and more important, even given the time that it's taken for us to, to get it onto the various platforms and, finally get it in a few theaters. In that time, it's become more relevant, as opposed to less, and not just in terms of the cyclical violence aspect, but also in terms of the, gender and sexuality identification ideas inside it, so it's pushing up against a lot of, societal norms and the way that we talk about things and the way that we interact around certain ideas. So, it's not an experience that I haven't had, so to speak, when Ice Cube and NWA did, Fuck the Police in 1989 or 1988, right? It's like, oh no, this song is not really gonna take hold until, a number of years later, when suddenly there's, evidence of these things that they were purported to have occurred, we actually can see. So, I think we're kind of in that same space, like the level of understanding that an individual brings, to the stage in terms of, their art. We think it's singular until we put it on a mass stage, and then a group of people go, no, it's collective. This is happening to a lot of people, in the same way. So if you can be disappointed and, excited or in a weird way, encouraged at the same time, then that's kind of what it is. There's a certain ambivalence about it. And you know, you just kind of have to sit with it.
Absolutely. I really thank you for sharing that. Stanley, what is it like for you, at this moment now where the film is about to come out, in theaters, video on demand? Obviously, it was at the film festivals a couple years ago. And then I understand that it, won a prize originally, which is how you and Ali got connected on this film. What's it like for you to kind of finally see this story that you've had and been telling, but finally get to see it kind of in this, hit it in the theaters in the big way?
You know, Ali and I were actually discussing this yesterday. It feels just good to get it out, you know? It's been a wonderful journey, between Tiff and Austin, Outfest, and, just the amount of love that the film, has been getting from like an internal industry point of view, which is, and it's done wonderful things for our careers individually. But the most important part of not only any film, but particularly, I think, a film like this is to be shown to the world, so that people can engage with the material, one, but two, the nature of the piece is communicative. The themes that we're playing with, the content of the film really demands being seen, and really demands an audience to consume, engage, and also feel less alone, feel seen, feel heard, as underrepresented communities. So I think for me, the feeling that I have is one, finally, and two, excitement at the film not being ours anymore. Like really, I'm very, very excited for the film to belong to the communities that it was made for, because it can't just be ours. It really is for the people, and I'm excited, and I'm really excited for that.
Thank you so much, Ali. Is there anything you want to add on to that?
I mean, he's right. The most important thing about, the work getting to the audience is that once that thing happens, right, it becomes absolute. It becomes a part of the experience. It becomes a part of the dialogue. It becomes a point of reference. It becomes real. And so, in as much as we've had some great engagement and reactions to it, as we've been moving like through the festival space and sort of, some of the limited screenings that we've had, to get it out to the larger audience and have it be there where it can be found. Now, it becomes something that people can go to. When we talk about it, we can go look at it. Or, somebody gets excited about it and say, I saw this wonderful film, then they can say to somebody else, I can show you exactly where it is. You can see it too. And then we can kind of have these conversations. And, I mean, the story, the characters, the things that are important in this movie are timeless, even though they exist in the space of, our contemporary society, in the way that they're rendered. The point of the story is timeless, and I think will endure. And like Stanley said, I just think that it'll, do a lot for not just people being able to be seen, but also, maybe it gives a little bit of a roadmap for how to engage around difficult ideas. What do you say when you're afraid that what you're about to say won't be heard, understood, accepted, appreciated? What do you do? Well, if you're telling the truth, you say it anyway.
Yeah.
And then you let the world sort it out. And that is kind of what this film is. It's difficult stuff, but it's like, yeah, you say it anyway. And then, we'll let the other people try and figure out how they want to handle the truth. But we never have to wait.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel that way because, I was lucky enough to see it, and I've been telling so many people, like, I can't wait for you to see it. It's such an important film. So thank you both so much for the time today. And thank you so much for making this film, for telling this story. And just a reminder, everyone, February 26th, if you can safely go to a theater, go check it out. But if not, video on demand. I know I'll be checking it out again, and you all should too. So thank you so much.